Welcome to Sleepy Stories Hub. Get ready for a cozy night full of wonderful tales. Before we begin our enchanting tales, let's take a moment to unwind and prepare for a tranquil night's sleep. Find a cozy place to settle down and gently close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, feeling the calmness fill your body. As you exhale, release any tension or stress you might be carrying. This short meditation is here to help you transition from the busyness of the day into a serene bedtime experience. Let your mind relax and allow your body to sink into comfort. As we journey through this brief moment of relaxation, imagine yourself leaving behind the worries of the day, making space for peace and tranquility. Now that you've taken this moment for yourself, get ready to dive into a soothing bedtime stories. Allow the calming words and gentle tales to guide you into a restful and peaceful night's sleep. Story by Rimbosity. Once upon a time, there was a young eel deep in the coral reef. He lived a happy life and never thought of anything but feasting on the tasty fish and shrimp that lived in the bottom of the ocean with him, swimming and feeling the push of the tide as it drew him in and out, and sleeping in his comfortable hidey hole. It was a comfortable life, and he was content. Until one day, as he was swimming about, a wise old shark swam by. "Little eel," said the shark, "are you not lonely? Do you not often wish for companionship?" The little eel thought about it. "No, sir," he said. "I am quite content swimming around and eating delicious shrimp and living in my hidey hole." "Suit yourself," said the old shark. But as he swam away, he added, "Might as well forget I asked." Now, if that shark had said something like, "Mark my words," or if the shark had emphasized the importance of it, then the young eel would have done just that. But since the shark had made nothing of it, and in fact had told the eel to forget it, quite naturally the eel could think of nothing else for days. And because he could think of nothing else, he became very unhappy with his life indeed. He became bitter about his shrimp and fish dinners and uncomfortable with his hidey hole. And when he went out to swim with the tide, surrounded by the population of the reef, it only made him feel lonelier. "Oh, stuff all these things," he said. "I was never unhappy about it, but now I am unhappy without a companion. I must find one." And so the young eel swam off in search of a companion. Within minutes, he found another eel. "Hello, Miss Eel," he said to her. "Would you like to be my companion?" "Oh no," she said. "I have a companion already, and all these little fry to take care of. But thank you for the offer." And he swam away, disappointed, but he did not expect to be so lucky on the first try. He came up to another eel a couple of hours later. "Hello, Miss Eel," he said to her. "I would like a companion." "You would you?" said she. "Well, good luck with your search." "Would you like to be my companion?" he asked. "I am not interested in a companion at this time." And he swam away, quite perturbed. A couple of days later, he came upon another eel. "My dearest Miss Eel," he said to her, "isn't it a lovely day for companionship? Would you like to join me?" "No," she said. "Why not?" asked he. "Because," she said, "in all honesty, you seem a bit too eager for companionship to me. And I wonder, what is it you are looking for that you haven't found?" "I am looking for a companion," he said. "I was happy in my hole, eating shrimp and fish and swimming with the tide. But then I realized that I did not have a companion, and that I must have a companion to be happy." "But my dear Mr. Eel," she replied, "if you are not satisfied without a companion, what makes you think you will find something with one? Companionship is as much about giving as it is about taking. Are you ready to give? I can tell you are not. You are thinking only of what you want. Now do go. I have had a busy day of swimming and need my rest." And the young eel was more frustrated than ever and darted back to his hidey hole, bitter and upset. He had been there a week, pouting and grouchy, before the shark swam by again. "What's this?" he asked the little eel. "What happened to my happy young eel? I think I have not seen an eel so miserable as this in all my years. Do you no longer enjoy your shrimp and fish, and your swimming with the tide, and your co's hidey hole?" "No!" the young eel nearly shouted. "I do not have a companion to share this with me. And I must have one to be happy," he said. "Oh dear," said the shark. "You do now? You didn't before." "Well, yes," said the eel. "I was quite content before. But then the idea of having a companion, well, it seemed so nice. Someone I can snuggle with in my cozy hidey hole. I can catch a big fish or shrimp and split it with her. We can swim in the ocean together. Those sound quite nice. But they seem quite nice even without a companion, no?" "Well, yes, but now that I think of how it might feel to do them with someone." "Perhaps that is the case. Perhaps there is no more enjoyment to be had in these things," said the shark, and he swam away. Now, if that shark had pointed out to the eel that the things he had enjoyed were still just as fun as they had been before, the eel never would have thought another thing of it. But because the shark said there was no more enjoyment to be had, the young eel began to think. "You know, I do still like my hidey hole. It is a very nice hidey hole by itself, and I enjoy swimming in the water just as much as I always did. And the little fish I ate yesterday was particularly good. I would enjoy them just as much as I did before if I don't have a companion. Why would I miss the joy without them?" And so the little eel stopped worrying about having a companion and began to enjoy his life once again. He still had that longing in his heart, but he was no longer a miserable young eel. He was happy again. 1 month later, the water was warming up as spring began to arrive, and he was just the happiest little eel swimming about when someone came up to him. "Pardon me," she said. "I couldn't help but notice how much you were enjoying the water here." "Dance with me," said the little eel. "It's fun, but it's even more fun if we do it together." And she did. And the two eels spun and coiled and danced, and all the fish and life around the reef were amazed at the beauty of their dance. Just then the eel spotted a large tiger shrimp. "Over there," he said to the other eel. "Those taste wonderful, but they are too large for one little eel to eat. Would you like to split one with me?" "Oh, I don't know," she replied. "You don't have to if you don't want to. Here, I'll catch some for myself, and you may try it if you like." And he shot forward and snapped and bit the tiger shrimp clean in two. He nudged the tastiest part, the head, to the female eel, and she ate it. Together, they ate the delicious shrimp. "You know," she said, "I've had them before, but for some reason, like this, it tastes better." "Yes," the little eel yawned. I think you're right." And the little eel was very tired. "I must retire to my cozy hidey hole. It is truly a nice hidey hole. Great for sleep. I'm tired." "Oh, I do love a good hidey hole," she said. Would you like to share mine with me?" I do believe I would. And so the young eel snuggled up in his hidey hole with his new companion, and they went to sleep. The wise old shark watched all this from afar, while an even older lobster ambled up to him. "You knew that the little eel would finally find love all along?" the lobster. "Of course," said the shark. "That's amore." Beowulf, Big Brother by AnneMarie. Miles I had thought old age would bring me the finer things in life, like a small staircase at the foot of mother and father's bed to help me climb up without having to jump, or chicken broth in my kibble to soften it, or more frequented walks, or heck, maybe some freaking pain meds that would make the world feel like it had when I was a puppy. Those were all the things my older friends at the park had bragged about when they told him what to expect in my elderly years, and it was the only thing that made reaching my 10th birthday something to look forward to. But when my 10th birthday arrived, there was no staircase to mother and father's plush California king, no stewed kibble, and certainly no pill-stuffed hot dog with promises of arthritic pain relief. I did get a cake, the same one Mother always made for me every year, peanut butter and sweet potato. Dear Mother, bless her heart, still couldn't figure out how to make the thing any less dry after 10 years, but I still scarfed the entire thing in one bite because, well, peanut butter. I got my regular walk around the forest fire road, though we turned around at the first gate instead of the second this time. Something my mind cursed, but my hips were grateful for. No, my birthday party did not come how I had expected, and really, I should have known what was coming. There had been a strange scent on Mother and Father's clothes a few days before. A few thin, white-colored hairs were stuck between the threads of Mother's pants and Father's jacket. It had smelt like they had been... No, I thought to myself, they would not go there without me. But it appeared I knew nothing. Apparently, I did not know a single thing about Mother and Father. And I suppose it should have been expected after they'd surprised me all those years ago with bringing the youngling home. It was their first betrayal, one I had no other choice but to accept, since the small creature shared Mother and Father's scent. And because any time I got too close to it, at least in those early years, Mother and Father would immediately become heightened, wearing their raised heart rates on their faces and their stress hormones like perfume. But this betrayal, I was not sure I could forgive this. "Beowulf," Father said, beckoning me. I came running, tail alight and wagging, as it always was at the sound of my leader's voice. "We have someone we want you to meet." Immediately, the scent from their laundry, that foreign smell I detected earlier, filled my nose when Mother walked in behind Father, her arms wrapped around something furry. With the visual confirmation, my tail was no longer playfully loose, but now tight and tense. I growled at the sight of the small fluff ball. "Get away from my mother." "Oh, Wolfie, no, this is your new little brother," Mother said, the pitch of her voice as high as it'd been when I met the youngling. But this was not a youngling like Gabby. No, this was a puppy, squeaked Gabby, who ran over to Mother, her little hand outstretched to stroke the small creature's head. I unleashed another growl. How dare this animal come near my youngling? Beowulf, no! Father's voice was commanding, and all of the tension in my tail recoiled at its authority. Mother's face distorted as she looked from the animal in her arms to Father while bending down low so Gabby could pet it. There was fear wafting from Mother, and that's when I noticed the pup in her arms trembling. I felt a bit proud that I'd affected it in this way. Good. You should be afraid. I narrowed my eyes threateningly. Beowulf, stop! Father grabbed me by my collar and yanked. I sat like a dutiful soldier, though I was a bit upset with him for his complicity in this betrayal. Honey, go ahead and put Kronos down. I think it's freaking Beo out that you're holding him. Put him down so he can smell him. I'll hold him so he can't lunge. Gabby, you sit with Mama? Give the puppy some space. Mother and the youngling did as Father said, and as soon as the animal touched the floor, I couldn't help it. I lunged. Father was just as quick as I and pulled me back. The animal whimpered and whined. Where am I? In my house. My house! My house! Beo, Father warned. I silenced, but I pulled against his grip, stretching my neck as far as it would go to inspect the pup closer. It was frozen in fear, barely able to retract away from my curious snout. Get over here so I can inspect you, child. And at that, the little thing peed everywhere. That first day Kronos and I spent in the same house was more work for me than it was for Mother and Father. As much as I despised the thing, I was a dutiful guardian of our home, and that meant protecting it from the little four-legged twig that peed practically any time a pen dropped. Not only was he peeing on everything, trying to demark all I had earned my claim to, he was biting and chewing on everything. It seemed like every time I turned my head, Kronos had one of my toys in his mouth. Hey, that is mine. Drop it. At least the hairball had enough sense in him to listen. He dropped it immediately, cowering to the floor, which wasn't but 3 inches from his belly. Woofy, no barking at Kronos, Gabby said. This is your brother. Be nice. She'd really been taking on Mother and Father's role in the last few years. I relented, taking a step away from the pup, holding a careful gaze on him to make sure he didn't try to run off with my bone. Brother? Kronos tilted his head at us. I growled at the word. Not even close. Gabby flicked her small finger across my nose. I'm not sure what stung more, that or her betrayal. For so many years it was just me and her. Her and me. How could she so easily welcome a new companion? As the day went on, Kronos became not only more comfortable in the home, probably had to do with how much the place was starting to smell like him, with all the pee everywhere, but he became more comfortable with me. I'd received enough scolding from Mother and Father, and the youngling, to understand that I shouldn't even waste my energy growling at him. He was obviously here to stay, whether I liked it or not. And once Mother and Father realized I probably wasn't going to rip his throat out, they gave us more distance, which only opened the door for Kronos to follow me around, berating me with questions. When is dinner? What are we having? How many times a day do we get to eat? Can I pee on this? Is this mine? Where do we sleep? Oh, I hope we sleep inside. Are you my mother? Can I pee on this? When is dinner? For the sake of my parents and the youngling, I stopped Kronos from peeing on Gabby's bed about 8 times, on their bed about 12 times, and on the couch about 100 times. I finally decided it would be easier to just show him where it was okay for him to relieve himself, instead of wasting all my energy stopping him at every corner. "This is how we get outside," I told him, nudging my nose against the clear flap. Kronos just stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. I pushed through the door and stepped outside. When I turned around, Kronos was staring at me from inside as if he'd just seen a ghost. "Well, are you coming?" Slowly, Kronos stepped forward, barely touching his nose to the screen. "Push!" I was growing frustrated. Was this thing stupid? Once Kronos finally made the painfully slow passage through the door, he practically leaped with joy. "Whoa! I'm outside! We're outside! Wow, look at that! What's this? What's that?" Instantly, he was nose to the floor, inspecting every inch of the patio, following every scent he picked up. This thing was a loose cannon, and it was so annoying. I was too old for this. "Come on, follow me." To my surprise, the pup did follow me. He followed me as I took the wide berth around the yard, securing the perimeters as I always did. I only had to redirect him 3 times, as he was constantly stopping to smell flowers or inspect a blade of grass. But we finally made it to the far end of the yard where the large oak tree stood. "Pee here, not in the house." Kronos immediately relieved himself, lowering his bottom to the ground and scooting across the lawn. "You pee like a girl." I showed him the proper way, lifting my leg a little higher than usual. I hadn't even realized how much I needed to go. He just stared at me in amazement. And then there was a shuffle in the tree above our heads, and I was quickly back on all fours, alert and ready. When I looked up, I was eye to eye with the blue bird. "Intruder! Intruder! Intruder!" I howled, jumping up the side of the tree. The bird was gone by my second bark, but I added the third for safe measure. "What was that?" Kronos asked, his eyes lit up like the sun. I was already strolling back towards the house when I answered him. "That was a tree dweller. It's our job to protect the house from creatures like that. But they don't all look the same. Some are furry. Some are." It was then that I realized what I had said. Kronos's little legs were hurrying to catch up to me. "That was so cool. Can you teach me how to do that?" I stopped in my tracks, feeling the hairs on my back rising despite the beaming warmth from the midday sky. I spun around, pressing my snout into his button-sized nose. "Listen, kid, this is my house. Mine, not yours. Mine! Those humans over there," I tossed my head towards the house, "are mine. I will show you where to pee, where to eat, where to sleep. But if you think for 1 second that you can replace me, you've got a bone for a head." The little pup melted into the grass, his tail shaking with fear. For a moment, I hovered over him, relishing in my power, savoring the scent of his submission. My shadow loomed over him, and then suddenly a shadow loomed over me. "Beowulf!" Father was pulling me back by my collar again. He thrusted me backwards, and then bent down and cradled Kronos in his arms. "It's okay, bud. He won't hurt you." Shame shrunk my tail, and all my power shriveled out of me when Father walked back towards the house, taking Kronos with him and leaving me behind. "Father," I whined, but all I got in return was a stern, "Stay, Beowulf." I was sunbathing in the last sun patch when Mother called me. I sprinted at the sound of her voice and greeted her with the full force of my wiggling tail. She welcomed me briefly by brushing her hand over my head and squeezing my ear before rushing off in another direction. She was scrambling for her shoes. "We're going to be late," Mother called. That's when I heard Father pacing upstairs and the shuffling of the youngling's feet coming down the hallway. I looked from Mother to Father to youngling, who were now adorning their freshly washed outside clothes. I felt the shiver overcome my body. They were leaving, and none of them had my leash in their hands. My heart sunk lower than my tail. The bliss of ignorance was the pip in Kronos' step as he trotted over towards the front door where we had all gathered. I remembered that feeling, the feeling that your parents could never do anything to hurt you. For a brief moment, I pitied him. Here Mother and Father were preparing to leave us, and the poor little guy had no idea. They were putting on coats, checking pockets, tying shoes, and I was staring at them as I always did, willing them to stay with my not-so-puppy eyes. "What are we all doing?" Kronos squeaked excitedly. When he saw me, he froze, remembering our last interaction, no doubt. "They're leaving," I groaned miserably. "Do you think they'll be okay?" Mother said. "Yeah, they'll be fine. Don't worry about them," Father said, then squatted down to face me. He cupped my head in his hands. "Be a good boy, Beowulf, and be good to your brother Kronos." Just like that, his command solidified through my body. I could not hurt the thing if I wanted to now. "Bye, Kronos," Gabby squealed, rubbing her hands across the furball's belly. "Aw, he's so cute, I don't want to leave him." A growl rumbled in my throat, but I concealed it. Kronos looked like he was gonna pee on everything again. After I heard their car leave the driveway, I huffed an exhalation and did what I always did when they were away. I laid on the couch and waited. Many years of enduring these long absences had given me time to appreciate the silences they offered. No youngling to tackle me and try to ride me like horse while shrieking in my ears. That was always nice. It also made me appreciate the opportunity to prove myself as a dutiful guardian of the property. My parents trusted me so much to keep the home safe that they needed me to stay behind to protect it. And that I did. Whenever I heard a rustling in the yard, I was out there in 2 seconds, ready to defeat it. But for now, I was enjoying the quiet calm. Until Beowulf. I blinked one eye open and saw a blurry Kronos shaking at the edge of the couch. I closed my eyes and sighed, spraying him with spittle. His fear was filling the room with an unpleasant, stinging aroma, and his nails tattled against the hard floor from all his trembling. He started pacing and whimpering. "Where are our parents? Are we going to be alone forever? Why did they leave us?" "Hush," I commanded, annoyed by his innocence. "They'll be back. Just lie down. Leave me alone." Silence resumed, and the sun began to set across the room. As it grew darker, I started to drift off into sleep, welcoming the blurred edges of a forest that started to morph the living room. I could hear the tree dwellers scratching in their branches, tantalizing me. They were hungry for a rematch, and I was determined for this to end in a heap of detached feathers and fur. My nails gripped into the couch cushions, and I was preparing to sprint. And then there was crying. Sorrowful, pleading, and terrified yelping. It was so sudden and so loud that it pulled me from my dream, ears perked, eyes wide. I scanned the dark room and found Kronos curled up in a ball smaller than my Kong ball, howling a pathetic howl. I was instantly irritated that I had woken up, sprung to attention for him. I was planning to ignore him and carry on with my pre-bedtime nap, when I heard him cry out, "Mom!" The sound was so high-pitched and so full of fear, it actually made me cringe. Instantly, I was a puppy again, and it was my first night in Mother and Father's house. I remembered the terror of being separated from my brothers and sisters and my mother, and brought to a brand new place where the smells were unfamiliar and the people were new. I remembered crying out for my mom the first time Mother and Father left me alone in the house. I'd had no idea if they ever planned on coming back. I'd had no idea what I would do or where I would go if they never returned. I jumped off the couch and approached the terrified pup. "Hey kid, you like stories?" Kronos looked up at me, surprise, fear, and tears all glistening in his eyes, and nodded. I nudged him with my nose, directing him to my bed, which lay at the foot of Mother and Father's bed. I gestured for him to lay in it, and then I curled up against him. Let me tell you about the time I slayed my first dragon. Shucked by R.J. Holmquist. Finally, I was dead. This was the moment I had waited for my entire life. To be clear, I did nothing to hurry its arrival. Nothing egregious anyway, despite the fact that my husk of clay wasn't always what I'd call amenable to keeping itself alive. Nonetheless, I really did do my best as long as it was my duty. I fed it, exercised it, gave it multivitamins when I remembered, and generally deferred from the things it craved that would clog its arteries, fog its brain, and otherwise break down its fragile fickleness. But all along, I knew time was on my side. It was just a matter of biding till I got shucked out of that coil of nonsense. I remember the first time I realized my ultimate destiny was ghostliness. The old bag of bones was still pretty short back then. Couldn't even see up over the kitchen counter. I'd come around the corner with a full head of steam chasing after the dog and lost track of the forehead portion of things. As all of you with foreheads already know, the moment you lose track of it, it slams itself into something. The countertop overhang was a willing hard spot, and next thing I knew, my mortal responsibility was flat on its back, forehead throbbing, eyes leaking, a permanent monument to clumsiness gashed right above the left eye. I was in there with all the pain and the crying. All I'd wanted to do was to catch up to the dog and feel its soft fur, but now I had to deal with fussing and sorting out limbs and being mad. At first, I was thinking about vengeance on the countertop, but there wasn't any way to make it hurt like the forehead was doing. Then it came to me. The pain wasn't really to do with the countertop. It didn't have any feelings to give or take. The forehead was the real culprit. It'd done the slamming, and now it was giving out all the hurting as well. That's when I knew. A ghost could have just passed right through all that sharp granite. A ghost wouldn't have throbbing and that kind of foolishness. So that's when I started looking ahead. I'd be stuck with clumsiness for a while, but someday I'd get shucked of it and all the pain that came along. A few years later, the limbs got longer and even more awkward, and now they did themselves the disservice of lifting the eyes up high enough to see into the bathroom mirror. I tried all sorts of ways to cover up that scar over the left eye, but I couldn't get those clumsy hands to adjust the hair in any kind of way that looked natural. And the scar was just the beginning of the problems. The nose wasn't anything I thought should be let out into public. The skin was its own little village of outraged inflammation, and I'd heard someone laughing about big ears, and was fairly certain it was in reference to the ones attached either side of the head I was in charge of. Going down from there, it was just a rash of worries. Was this part too big or that part too small? All this led to messing around with every kind of clothes, trying to cover things that wouldn't hold up to being seen, while making it seem like what was underneath might be worth looking at. I hated winding up courage to stand my flesh and blood in front of mirrors, and every time I did, I looked forward to being a ghost. Ghosts don't have unsightly reflections, or any reflections at all. Ghosts are just there, being themselves, without worrying about seeing or being seen. Ghosts don't have to be in shape, because ghosts don't have any shape at all, not unless they want to now and again. The worst part about being stuck inside a body was, of course, being left behind. First, it was my dog, the same fluffy one I used to chase around the house. One day he got slow, then he wouldn't run at all. Then he would just lay there and snap at me when all I wanted to do was feel his soft fur. He finally went where I couldn't follow, free to run around again while I was stuck inside of an earthbound ball of self-consciousness with no best friend to make me feel good when everything else was bad. After he went, others followed. I did eventually figure out how to get those ungainly limbs to walk straight, and managed to look other bodies in the eye, even though I knew all the things that were wrong with mine. There was even a time when I thought I found someone who liked those things that were wrong about me. The hands I had fitted nicely into the hands he had, and we got to staying together, and I just about got around to thinking it was nice, spirits and bodies bound as one. And I got to thinking that maybe I didn't ever want to be a ghost, not if being alive could be like this. But the truth is, bodies always betray you. He got slow before he should have, before I did. I had to help him with his body then, lift his limbs in and out of bed, get clothes covering him, get food into his mouth when finally he couldn't do it himself. Then, before he left, he snapped at me, just like that old dog, and that hurt worse than any forehead banging ever could, even though I knew he didn't mean it, even though I had a good idea he might have been a ghost already when he did it. Only his flesh and bones didn't know it yet. I was done with bodies after that, though I still kept mine up. I made it stand and walk just so far every day. I made it eat greens and drink clear water, but I was wary of it. I never trusted it, and I got to hankering for my destiny as a ghost again. If I was a ghost, I'd be the one going places. If I was a ghost, I'd be the one shucking out and leaving folks behind. The day I died was a bright and sunny day. I thought that was fitting, because I sprung right out of all that dust and ashes, just like an honest-to-goodness daisy, and it was everything I hoped it would be. Right away, I zipped clean around the earth, all that mud and water spinning past, and not one stitch of pain or 1 ounce of worry dragging me down. You'd think I was plumb lacking sense the way I dove deep down into the oceans, then came twirling up out of the waves, squealing for. It was so much joy before skimming the top of the coldest mountain, and even sitting on the tip of the crescent moon, only because it was so easy. You bet I found that fluffy dog wagging his tail to see me, and after that, found the one who I knew had always liked me, though I still made him say, "I'm sorry," both for snapping, even though I knew he didn't mean it, and for leaving me alone. The funny thing is, after all that, after our hellos, and after all our plans for eternity were put right in place, our favorite thing to do on evenings was to settle down next to each other and watch the bodies down below go about their business. It's not that we ever wanted to go through all that again, but once you've done it, and once you are on the other side, it's easy to see how it makes a good story, and it gets you rooting for everybody else who hasn't got shucked yet.